In a stunning turn, Canada's recent tariff retaliation sent shockwaves through North America. President Trump, known for his tough negotiating style, was blindsided by the scale of Ottawa's response, a direct economic challenge, not just political posturing. Trump had assumed Canada, so economically tied to the US, would simply absorb his tariffs. Instead, Ottawa struck back with $21 billion in targeted tariffs. The White House was left scrambling, having misread their closest ally. For decades, the US and Canada have shared deep economic and security ties. Trump saw Canada's move as a betrayal of this partnership. His tariffs, meant to protect American workers, were met with what he called economic treachery. The shock quickly hardened into a grim resolve in Washington, setting the stage for a drawn-out conflict that could redefine the North American alliance. The fallout forced both countries to reassess their relationship and national interests. Tariffs are taxes on imports, used to protect domestic industries or exert pressure on trading partners. Trump's administration escalated tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum to 50%, citing national security and the need to protect American industry. He argued that relying on foreign metals, even from allies, was a risk to US sovereignty. This move was part of Trump's broader claim that America was being exploited in global trade, especially by Canada's protected dairy sector. Critics warned that North American steel and aluminum industries are deeply integrated, and such tariffs would disrupt supply chains, raising costs for US manufacturers and consumers. Instead of protecting American jobs, the tariffs threatened to harm the very industries they aimed to help. The spark intended to shield American industry now risked igniting widespread economic uncertainty. Canada responded swiftly and decisively, refusing to back down in the face of mounting US trade pressure. The government moved with a sense of urgency, determined to protect Canadian jobs and industries from the fallout of American tariffs. Within days, officials announced $21 billion in retaliatory tariffs, set to take effect on March 12, 2025. This was one of the largest trade actions in Canadian history, signaling a new era of economic confrontation. This was no symbolic gesture. It was a calculated counterpunch, meticulously designed to target politically sensitive US sectors and maximize economic impact where it would be felt most. Prime Minister Carney made it clear, Canada would not be bullied. In a nationally televised address, he demanded credible US commitments to fair trade, vowing to stand up for Canadian workers and businesses. The tariffs hit a wide range of American goods: steel, aluminum, computers, cast iron, and even sports equipment. No sector was left untouched, and the message was unmistakable. The impact rippled through both economies, ensuring the pain was felt not just by corporations but also by everyday families on both sides of the border. Prices rose, jobs were threatened, and uncertainty grew. Most notably, Canada targeted products from states crucial to Trump's election win, like whiskey from Kentucky and Tennessee. These choices were strategic, aiming to hit the president's political base. The goal was clear: create pressure within the US to force a resolution and make American lawmakers feel the heat from their own constituents and business leaders. Canada's move transformed the dispute into a true two-way conflict, calling Trump's bluff and asserting Canadian sovereignty on the world stage. The balance of power had shifted. The $21 billion counterpunch ensured the costs of this trade war would be shared, not shouldered by Canada alone. Both nations now faced real economic risks and mounting political pressure. The stage was set for a prolonged stalemate, with real and lasting consequences for both nations. Industries braced for uncertainty and leaders prepared for a drawn-out battle. The world watched closely as North America's closest allies became fierce economic rivals, wondering how far this standoff would go, and who would blink first. The North American auto industry, built on a complex web of cross-border supply chains, now faces unprecedented chaos. For decades, automakers in the US, Canada, and Mexico have relied on seamless cooperation, with parts and vehicles crossing borders multiple times before reaching showrooms. But Trump's proposed 25% tariff on Canadian and Mexican vehicles sent Detroit automakers into panic, threatening the very foundation of their business model. Executives scrambled to assess the impact, knowing that even a small disruption could ripple through the entire industry. Ford CEO Jim Farley warned the tariff would devastate the US auto sector, raising costs for manufacturers and making American cars less competitive, both at home and abroad. The threat loomed over every assembly line, from Michigan to Mexico. In 2023, a staggering 93% of Canadian-made vehicles were exported to the US, highlighting just how intertwined the two economies are. American automakers depend on Canadian and Mexican plants for essential parts and finished vehicles, making the supply chain truly continental. Disrupting this flow would mean production halts, factory shutdowns, and job losses on both sides of the border. The consequences would ripple far beyond the factory floor, affecting suppliers, dealerships, and entire communities. Automakers scrambled for contingency plans, but untangling decades-old supply chains is nearly impossible overnight. The industry's deep integration means that any sudden change could take years to resolve, if it can be resolved at all. Workers from Ontario to Ohio now face an uncertain future, caught in a political crossfire that threatens their livelihoods and the stability of their families. The trade war, meant to protect American jobs, now threatens to destroy them in a vital industry that has long been a backbone of the North American economy. The real cost is measured not just in lost profits, but in lost livelihoods and shaken communities, places where the auto industry isn't just a job, but a way of life. The American spirits industry, especially whiskey, became a high-profile casualty of the trade war. Once a symbol of American craftsmanship and global appeal, whiskey producers suddenly found themselves at the center of an international economic dispute, with their livelihoods hanging in the balance. After a record year, U.S. liquor exports plunged 9% in Q2 2025, with shipments to Canada collapsing by a staggering 85% after a 25% retaliatory tariff. The sudden drop was a shock to an industry that had been thriving, and it sent ripples of concern through distilleries and export businesses across the country. Canadian consumers, faced with higher prices for American whiskey, turned to domestic or foreign spirits instead, leaving once popular American brands gathering dust on the shelves. The shift was swift and dramatic, as loyalty gave way to affordability. The tariffs hit hardest in Trump-supporting states, inflicting economic pain where it hurt politically. Small towns and rural communities, many of which rely on distilleries for jobs and local revenue, felt the brunt of the downturn as layoffs and closures became more common. The damage spread beyond Canada. U.S. spirits exports also fell sharply in the EU, UK, and Japan. These key markets, once eager for American whiskey, now turned to other suppliers, compounding the industry's woes and threatening its global reputation. Industry leaders warned that lost market share and brand loyalty could take years to recover, even if tariffs are lifted. The long-term impact, they cautioned, could reshape the industry and force some brands out of business entirely. The whiskey industry's decline is a stark example of how trade wars can backfire, hurting the very workers and businesses they're meant to protect. The consequences ripple outward, affecting not just distilleries, but also the communities and families that depend on them. What started as a political maneuver became a financial crisis for distillers, farmers, and supply chains. The effects were felt from the grain fields to the bottling lines, disrupting an entire ecosystem built over generations. The lesson is clear: tariffs can boomerang, inflicting lasting damage on American success stories and leaving scars that may take years, or even decades, to heal. The trade war fractured not just national, but regional relationships. Even after Canada's federal government lifted its alcohol tariff, several provinces kept their own bans, showing deep-seated resentment. In Canada, provinces control alcohol sales, and their defiance complicated any hope for a full resolution. Meanwhile, U.S. states pushed back against Trump's policies, with 13 governors forming a coalition to maintain stricter environmental standards. This patchwork of provincial and state actions created chaos for businesses who now faced a maze of conflicting rules. The breakdown of national unity in favor of regional interests made a comprehensive solution elusive. The trade war's side effect: a fraying of economic bonds not just between countries, but within them. The U.S.-Canada trade war is a cautionary tale. Trade wars are messy, unpredictable, and rarely end as planned. What began as a show of American strength triggered a chain reaction: retaliatory tariffs, supply chain chaos, and fractured alliances. The idea that one country can impose its will without blowback proved dangerously false. Canada's strategic response showed even close allies can fight back, inflicting pain on both sides. The conflict exposed the fragility of national unity, as provinces and states pursued their own agendas. The trade war became a multi-front battle, with consequences rippling through industries and communities. In a global economy, simple one-sided victories are an illusion. Trade wars topple dominoes in unpredictable directions. The true cost: strained alliances, lost jobs, and economic pain that could last a generation.